Hello everybody and welcome everybody to the final GameGuru Max live broadcast of 2020. This will be broadcast number 24 and I hope you forgive me, but on the many broadcasts I'm going to do in 2021 I won't be quoting the broadcast number anymore. I think it's a little bit redundant. As long as you don't go over the 20 mark, that's the main thing. So, welcome. I'm sure you're looking forward to lots of exciting revelations from me in this broadcast. I'm going to show you a little thing, but I'm going to leave the rest as wonderful teasers for 2021. And I'm going to open up this broadcast for an extended time to do some more answers to any questions, any final questions that you have in 2020. For those that don't know, which is probably most of you, this is my last day of official work. After this day, I'm officially off the clock. But as I am in lockdown and I'm habitually stuck in front of my keyboard, even on my day offs, I will still be around. I will be casually frequenting the forums. I will be helping out in support. I'll be answering emails and all those kinds of things. But basically, I'm doing it for my leisure. I'm not doing it for my job. So I'll still be around. It's just this is my last official day. And I really wanted to tell you all that. So as usual, my format is you can ask your questions, put a question mark at the end of the sentence. And at the end of my little broadcast, I'll go through them, find the questions and try and answer them as best I can. And then probably answer them a little better in a GameGuru thread that I will create after this broadcast along with a recording of this session. So that's the format. So get your questions posted now. I'm just going to check the chat to see if everybody can hear me. So we've got a hello, evening all. Audio is fine as usual. That's from Martin Oliver, so thanks for that. I presume the as usual smiley face means Lee. Please stop asking everyone whether you can hear us or not, because it's getting a bit tired. You're pretty new to the software now. You don't have to keep asking. You might have a point. So starting 2021, I won't be asking that question. Of course, you know, if you've tuned in for the first 10 minutes of a broadcast and you can't hear anything, I've probably pressed the wrong button. So it's probably a good idea to interject in the live chat at that point to tell me if that is indeed the case. So the first thing I want to say, just to get it out of the way, is there will be no update in 2020. I had it all ready. I had me installed already. I had a version ready to go out, but we had a look at it. Our internal team reviewed it thoroughly. And we decided we're sort of setting ourselves off on the wrong foot. We're allowing something to go out into the public that's got bugs in it, and it's got sections that don't actually work or only half work, and you're not really getting a benefit of what our vision is, which is, you know, when we do something, for example, we've got stuff in there which is just the UI. You can change sliders, you can move things around, you can select things, but nothing actually happens when you press test game. It doesn't do anything. And that's inherently dissatisfying. So you're sort of like getting a teaser, you just get almost, and then boom, we pull the rug from under you. And we didn't want to be that cruel. So we're going to instigate a policy in 2021 that before we actually give you any builds, two things will happen. One, you'll have a complete section that you can play with. And two, we'll minimize the number of bugs in that build. So you're not going to be our primary bug finders. We kind of want to give you stuff that you can just get in, use, and then feedback, not on, oh, I found 10 bugs, but you feedback on, is it a good experience? Did it help you make that game? Or was it a hindrance? That's the kind of feedback we want to create from you guys and gals in 2021. And to that end, I have created a buffer. I have created a set of very special people who I'll sandwich between me and the public, who will give the build a once-over and scrutinize it for said bugs and make sure that you never experience those bugs by the time you get your hands on it. So, how are you going to get all these lovely builds in 2021, I hear you say? Well, that's the bit I want to show you. To do the final broadcast and not show you any binary, sacrilege. So I'm going to go slightly against the script and just show you the first part of it, just to wet your whistle a bit. So I'm going to close down my browser and I'm going to run this. This is what I'm calling the GameGuru Max tiny installer. It's 120 megabytes. That's the size of the software. Create a desktop icon, please. Install. And that won't be there in the final version. And you're done. That's it. You've installed GameGuru Max. Congratulations. How is this even possible, I hear you ask? Well, this is what we're going to give you. And some of you out there may already guess what it is. This actually is the way we're going to deliver all updates in the future. You're going to get a very tiny installer, which you can just run, and it drops a desktop icon on your desktop. But then all the files that you need for the software will be grabbed from our server. That is, the latest files. If we released an update or a fix or anything like 2 days before, and you install the software, you're not installing some old 4 gigabyte installer that we haven't bothered to update in a month. You're actually getting the very latest official public version at the moment you run that installation. It's nothing new. It's been done for years, but we figured it was a really neat system. And also, I'll just click the download button so you can see what's actually happening. It's going to scan the server. It checks the files that you've already got in the system and the files you don't have, or files of different versions. Then it proceeds to download all those files for you. So that's what it works like. And of course, as I was saying, there's another secondary benefit, is when you're running the software and you want a new update, then we're using the same software. It can again check the server, check the local files you've got, work out what the differences are, and then only deliver those different files straight to your local machine. So we have a built-in auto updater with the software. And in addition to that, when you run the software for the first time, it will check to see if there's a new version available and pop that up. And if you say, yes, I want the latest version, then it will pop up the auto updater and you can select which version you want, either the latest, or you can regress back to any previous public version. Perhaps you're working on something and you don't want that latest version, you want the same one you've always been using. Well, you'll have that choice. So I wanted to show you that. That's what you might have got towards the end of the year. But as I said, it may have led to disappointment when you've got a section that looks really cool with lots of buttons, and then when you try and use them, nothing is really happening in the game. But in January, it's all going to go crazy when we've got lots of things for you. We're going to set up a new broadcast regime along the lines of the broadcast. This, what I'm doing right now, will actually be covering a section you will be able to get your hands on. So the idea is we're going to do a build, make sure that it's ready for the public, and then I talk about it. So the things I talk about are the things you can play with. So we're going to do that in 2021, sort of to mitigate the disappointment a little. So that's what I wanted to show you. I was really excited that we actually got all this ready before the end of the year, because obviously not only does it mean it's easy for you to get updates and you don't have to download another 5 megabyte installer. Can you imagine the elegance it is now for the internal team? We don't have to keep messing about building installs, sending them out internally, etc, etc. All we're going to do is set up a new version, drop in the new files that have changed from the last one, and then anyone on the internal team, bing, they get an instant update. They can try it right away. So it's super cool for many, many reasons, and I'm pleased to be able to share it with you today. So I'm going to go to the chat now and have a look and see what everyone is talking about. Nothing rude, I hope, but specifically question mark, because I like questions and I hope you like the answers. So I'll go to the top one. This is from Bouncy Sky 152, who asks, will GameGuru Max have support in any way for haptics? For anyone who doesn't know, haptics is like the vibrating controller you have on your Xbox, or a touchpad that will vibrate when you touch something rough on the screen. Anything that has that sort of feedback capability. I presume that's what it means. It's been a while since I played around with haptics, and will always have some. We are looking at good game controller support, and controllers will invariably have some force feedback or some haptic capabilities. Being able to trigger those during the game for situations where you might want to alert the player of something. Actually, I've seen quite a lot of haptics. Haptics in mouse, you know, mouse and the mouse wheel. Haptics on other strange devices. Will we support every kind of haptic? No. Will we support haptics because they would lend a strong benefit to a particular aspect we're working on, such as VR and game controllers? Probably. No plans for it. There isn't any task item with haptics written on it. But they will be very close to just general support for game controllers, so don't be too surprised if you do see it at somewhere down the line. So hopefully that's a thorough and altogether too long answer to a very straightforward question. Okay, here's a question in Russian. Why, thank you very much. I don't read Russian. It's a great question. And you use the question mark at the end. Thanks very much. So I guess you can understand what I'm saying. So if someone could translate that, that would be awesome. So thanks, Dest. If anyone else can translate that, that'll be awesome. Here's a question with a question mark. This is from Make My TV. How will the reloading work in GameGuru Max VR? Will it have animations or will it be physics-like? I presume you mean reloading of guns and weapons. At the moment, in our test versions, it's a button on the VR controller, and then the gun sort of goes swinging away with its animation and reloads. But in practice and experience, it doesn't really feel right, because you're holding the controller, you can see the gun, and when you press the button, it's as if someone else taking control of your arm and it swings away, because it's kind of running 2D animations in that VR experience. In reality, in VR games that I've played, you always have full control of the position and orientation of the things you're holding in your hands, such as a weapon. So I think for reloading, it would probably still be a button, or you could face the gun down and trigger, something like that. But there won't be any crazy animation going on, perhaps except where the weapon itself is like chambering a round or something like this. But it won't swing off as it sort of does some crazy 2D animation style thing. So we are going to make sure that experience is good before we unleash it onto you. So that's how it would be. If you mean, or will it be physics-like? Yes. More physics-like, more in tune with where your hand is at the time when you're playing that VR game. So looking for a question. Any updates on grass? Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the progress I made so far on grass. The idea that you can have multiple grass types. We've now got additional controls in the UI for things like density, so the intensity of the grass, how fast the grass can be painted, the heights of the grass, different grass types. I stopped just short of animating the grass and making the animation of the grass move realistic with things like wind. But it's a good thing that we stopped, actually, because that was around the time we did a big UI design refresh of the whole software. And we realised, there's lots of things you can do with atmospheric effects and wind and stuff like that, which may indeed affect how that grass animates. So it's probably a good time to have stopped in any event. So yeah, we are going to look at grass. We're certainly going to get some more art in, just so we can have more different grass types. And the way we're going to do that, we're actually going to go out and look at modern games to see, in reality, what are people using grass for. I mean, it's all very well saying, look, we've got a big field of grass and there's grass everywhere. But if you actually play games, it's very rare you're going to see I saw No Man's Sky, that had grass everywhere. But mostly it's paths and buildings and objects and patches and water bodies. Leaves very little room left for the grass, because the grass keeps getting erased as all these features added to the landscape. So we want to look at real games and see how those grasses are being populated and moved about, and use that as inspiration as we move forward to complete the grass system. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that evolve, and by the end of it you'll have a number of ways in which you can place grass down that mimics what you see in a modern game. Looking for another question. We found one here. This is from Andy Goldo. Will GameGuru in Orange Max be released in 2021? It's an open release date, so we're not giving anyone a date. And that might seem cruel and unusual, but what it does allow room for is to aim for product quality, so we get a really nice quality result. And usually you have to compromise when you have a date. I mean, you've probably noticed in other developments, even large ones with massive teams of hundreds of people, deadlines do move, release dates do change. And it's not necessarily that the people working there are all lazy and incompetent. It's just that there's something called development iteration that you can't really estimate. You can estimate your initial implementations and say, right, that's what we drew a year ago. But then if the thing that actually is coded and running, it doesn't feel great, then you've got to iterate it. You've got to make it better. And I think that's the thing that we can't put our finger on at the moment. So will it be released in 2021? I hope so. I hope so. I hope we can get through this really quick and we crack it first time and the experience is great. But the luxury of an open release date is that we can sit on this now till we think the quality is excellent and this product is ready for the world, and then we release it. Hopefully a long-winded way of saying I hope so 2021. But you're ready to you can speculate all the like. I'm just scrolling through. Stormy MC speculates Christmas 2077, probably in reference to the Cyberpunk release, which didn't quite go to plan, as according to the developers and publishers. But if you want to learn more about that, type out Cyberpunk 2077, and I'll leave you to read that one. So looking for another question. We've got a question from Mark Oliver. Question, will it phone home when starting every time? Will it work offline? Additionally, pause updates or rollback updates. Obviously, if you're offline, there's no way for the software to check if there's new updates available or can download new updates. But sure, we won't sabotage the software if you're currently offline. You'll need to be online for certain things like, I don't know, installing the software for the first time, because you're going to need those files. But I don't see a need to have some crazy protection system which just shuts down the software if you're offline. There are many scenarios where you're not online but you still want to create games. So look into the next question. I hope that answers it. So yeah, I'm not sure about the phone home feature though. Okay, here's a question from Grenadeware. Haley, is there a chance to have a main menu editor like we had for the FPS Creator X9 one? Do you think we get one maybe, because that's nice? I can categorically confirm you will be able to create your main menus, your title screens, your splash screens, your loading screens, your game over screens, your other kinds of screens that you don't know you need yet, and a full-blown editor to let you do all the things that you want to do. So hopefully that's good news for anyone listening to this live broadcast. As I said, we literally went back to the beginning and said, what would you want when you're making your game? And you would want to be able to change how the title screen looks, how the in-game menus look, the text, the images, the colours, the functions. So we've gone back and we've looked at it and we've concluded, yes, you need that, so we're going to create that for you. Looking for another question? I'm always looking for question marks, but that last one didn't have a question mark, but I found it anyway. Okay, giggles. Haptics on other devices. Someone's enjoying this broadcast, but I'm not quite getting the joke yet. Looking for Google Translate. Yeah, so I think someone's translated that question I had earlier, so thanks for that. Maybe it has been repeated and then I've answered it. Here's the one we get every live broadcast. I'm not resentful. I think it's a very valid question. I just wish I could have a recording so I could just keep replaying it. When is GameGuru Max coming out? There is no fixed date. It's an open release. Look out in 2021 for some clues as to when we might be releasing it. I hope that and all my other answers all clubbed together generally answers that sentiment. Here's a question from Make My TV. Could you add a feature that when a guy will reload, he would shout something like reload or I'm out? I presume you mean for the enemy characters or the NPCs that have been running around allied to you and assisting you in shooting other people. I don't see why not. We're certainly going to improve the combat systems to have not just reloading, but all of animations that surround that whole combat experience on the side of the enemy. So you can have more engaging combat. One of the things I like to see is that if a character that's running across from you, and then you maybe shoot them in the leg, and then they stumble. Now, usually when you're shooting an FPS game, you track a target, but you'll track at a certain speed. So if the enemy that you're tracking suddenly slows down, your tracking goes off, and you have to counteract, which means you have to slow down and move back. But by then, that enemy is just sped up and darted into a run. So you can't actually lock in every time, and that's what I like. You actually make the gameplay a lot more interesting when you add things like that. So it could be a character is running, and then maybe he slows down his run whilst he reloads his weapon. Again, that will put off the player's tracking capabilities. So look out for things like that. But as to shouting and stuff, I think so. I can't tell you exactly why, but what I can say, and I hinted at it last broadcast, we are adding a visually based logic system that allows you to connect events like this together. So it could be that you could program the character to trigger off other things than just reloading that weapon. So keep an eye out for that, or it might be built into the character. I'm not decided yet, but I guess you could do it one way certainly, but maybe it'd be nice if it just did it automatically and you just get to decide what the guy or gal says. So looking for another question. Is there a question out there? There is. Will we have community maps again, or a competition or two? Community maps. I presume you mean community making maps and perhaps really tied to a competition so we can choose the best 5 or the best 3 or the best 10 and then award lovely prizes. I think that's a great idea. I'd like to see the return of competitions. I would though like to give you a version of the software that's pretty good. Something that you can have confidence in creating, not necessarily full-blown games, but certainly interesting looking maps with the assets that perhaps you may be bringing in from the outside, which is one of the big things I want GameGuru Max to support. That if we don't have the asset in the internal library, you can literally go out there to any of the asset stores, find the things you want for your game making project, and then bring them in, and they'll work. That's what I really want for Max. So it'll be a very interesting competition in 2021 where we see some quite interesting and certainly not asset flips competition entries when it comes to the levels that people can create. So yeah, something to remind me of in early 2021, and we'll set up some plans as to at what build would it be appropriate to start a competition to ask for community created levels, and then we'll have a few prizes for you all at the end of it. So here's a question. This is from oh, is it a question? No, it's just a nice lovely long comment. That's not a question. Looking for a question. Here's a question. This is from Ben Stanley. On the topic of OpenXR, what forms of VR locomotion will be bundled with GameGuru Max by default? Great question. As you know, there's quite a few different ways you maneuver inside VR. Some are sicklier than others. There's 2 that we've locked in on, quite happy with to begin with. One of them is your traditional game controller style, where you're pushing the thumbstick forward and then the character would move, and then if you push forward to the side, then you can move and rotate at the same time, or just left and right, you can spin left and right. That's as close as you can get to, say, the old game controller fashion. However, some people suffer a little bit of motion sickness when you've got this sort of slow movement and then quick turning in a game. So we also have the teleport feature, so you can literally have an arc that projects a line into the scene somewhere, you press a button and boom, you teleport straight there. And then when you rotate, the kind of fast rotations. And if you do a rotation fast enough and in a certain visual way, you don't get motion sickness because it's too quick, as it goes whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. If you have a look at things like the manner, the portal manner in Windows Mixed Reality, you'll get that kind of idea. So it's been well researched, and we are supporting the teleport feature. There are other hybrids, but we're not looking at those yet. We're just keeping the 2 that we've got. And if any more come along that, oh, that's a really good idea to help someone maneuver through VR. For example, anti-gravity. So let's just switch gravity off, which you will be able to do in GameGuru Max. Then you're floating around in VR. So, you could just use the controllers to sort of grab a ledge or grab a piece of wall and then pull yourself through. I found that to be a really interesting control system that you could only really do in VR, because you need that stereoscopic perception to help you know where the ledges are. Even though you can't see them, you're able to grab them because they're just below your frame of view. So yeah, there's things like that. But for now, teleport and classic thumbstick movement is what we've got today. Here's a question. Have I skipped a question? No, here it is. Here's a question from Kitakaze. Lee, when you get home from work, what video games have you been playing? Is that some sort of joke? No, I'm just so busy these days. I'd like to play games, but wake up in the morning and then instantly get into work. And I stop work, either I fall asleep at the keyboard or I have to eat or something. For to say, what's the last game I played? Well, that was Half-Life Alyx. And I got to the part where it was that really dark sort of celery bit where you find the torch, and when you shine the torch you see those like face hugger things scurrying around, and you've only got like 4 bullets, so you have to keep doing constant quick loads so you don't waste any ammo. I don't know if that's halfway or 3/4 through, but at that point I suddenly had real work to do and I had to stop. But it's Christmas, so maybe I can dig out the game and finish it. I think everyone else has finished it, apart from me. And maybe check out some other VR experiences out there, because there's, now enough people have got headsets. We're seeing some really amazing stuff out there. And hopefully, the games you create in GameGuru Max will contribute to that wealth, as we give you enough controls and tools in order to create your own VR experiences and environments. Hopefully, some of them will go out there and do really well, because there's a lot of request and demand and hunger now for VR content. We've got the hardware, we've kind of got that right now. What we need is content. And not necessarily content that costs 30 quid just to have a 1-hour experience. Okay, so looking for a question. I'm also looking at the clock. As it's Christmas, you can leave if you want, but if it goes over 30 minutes, I don't care. I'm just going to keep going until my mouth stops working. But that's not entirely true. I think everyone will want to go on and do their own thing. But I'll have a look for a few more questions and see if there's anything I can say about them. Take your time. Thanks very much. A question is, will GG Max ever have anti-cheat in multiplayer? Not thinking about multiplayer at the moment. My mind is purely focused on the single player and all of the things that we need to do in that space. But I think people cheating in a multiplayer game created by GameGuru Max is at the back of most people's minds. Will you create a cutscene editor? No plans to create a cutscene editor, although we are putting stuff onto the visual logic side, which may allow you to create some very interesting cutscenes without necessarily needing a dedicated editor for it. Looking through for another question for you. This is from Super Confident Man. Can you put in death throes and screaming and death rattles and severed limbs? If you import all of those assets and then chain them together in a reasonable way, then yes, you can create such a horrific experience in your games. Will we be providing death rattles and severed limbs by default in the core product? No. You will have to provide your own severed limbs. The 8-bit generation asks, will I be able to create games on other platforms, or will it run under Windows only with GameGuru Max? We are not interested in other platforms at this time. It will be Windows 10 or above with a decent GPU graphics card. And we're going to stay there until we get the product absolutely right. The chances of then stepping down to small mobile technologies or jumping across to consoles, these are all options, but I don't think we should be stretching ourselves like that until we've proved ourselves on this platform. So for the foreseeables, it will be Windows 10 with a decent GPU. And only when people declare en masse, you absolutely nailed this, you have permission to go and create this on another platform, then we'll start considering it. But for now, there are no plans to go on any other platforms. Biscuit Socks Games asks, will the base AI be improved because when an enemy kills me, they just end up running into a wall and not reacting when I shoot? Yeah, I assume you're talking about GameGuru Classic. There isn't much that the enemies do in GameGuru Max build at the moment. But in answer to the question, yes, we're going to do some very clever AI in Max. And it's not just clever AI, we're going to let you craft that AI with the visual logic system I was alluding to before. But yeah, the stupid thing about enemies walking constantly into a wall instead of walking through the door. Classic error, isn't it? Certainly a bug. We're going to use a new technology for the mapping of your level for walkable areas and a new pathfinding system. So there will be no need then in the future for an enemy to try and walk through a solid wall. So don't worry too much about that. When you get that build of Max that has character AI, a new character AI, it will work out the box. So don't worry about the I can walk through a wall AI, which is currently sporadically displaying itself in GameGuru Classic. I'm just scrolling through the question, what are you going to eat for Christmas? Beer doesn't count. Well, I guess I'm not eating anything then. Didn't you know beer was a food group? What are you talking about? Okay, take whatever time you need to polish Max. Am I ready for my holiday? Thanks very much. That's the plan. Let's keep it polished until it's perfect. No great plans for Christmas. Just going to stay here and veg out, play a few games, figure out what the modern game actually is. A lot of catching up to do, as I already mentioned. And of course, stay in the forums, stay in the chat, social feeds, different communities, just making myself known. I won't disappear, I've nowhere to go. Maybe that will change in Christmas 2021. But for now, you can't get rid of me. Here's a question from Grenadeware. Is there a chance to get some new stuff for GameGuru Max and even brand new features like Weapons Creator, Segment Editor, and even an introduction video for the menus? I don't know, but we'll see. Yes, to the intro videos, you'll be able to put videos basically anywhere in your game, whether it's the splash screen or in your title screen or in the game itself. Or you can create a whole video as a cutscene and have that between levels 1 and 2. All that kind of stuff is certainly possible. Are we going to do Weapons Creator? No. Are we going to do... What was the other thing you wanted? The segment editor back from FPS Creator. No plans to do that. Not saying we're not going to do them, it's just not high on the list. Weapons Creator might be best left to artists. It's not just about creating a nice model. You've got to make it function. It has to animate, it has to work with different keys, different timings. If you want the ultimate example of a great weapon, look at the Enhanced Weapons pack and the effort that Jake puts into his weapons. It's off the charts. Do you really want to be able to do all that? Probably not. A simple weapon creator, maybe that's a good idea for a third-party tool that can be plugged into Max, but we don't have any plans to create that. Looking down for another question. This is from... I'm never going to get that first time, am I? Kitakaze. Will the loading times between levels in standalone build game be improved? Even with small levels currently can be 5 minutes. Well, you know, how long's a piece of string? And the answer, it's twice the length from the centre to the end, doesn't count. It's all dependent on how big your level is, how much content you've got in there, what kind of system you're running on, etc. So it's quite arbitrary to have so this takes 5 minutes, because it could take like 20 seconds on someone else's machine. We will, however, be looking at that load. It has been mentioned a lot, that can we have the loading times a bit faster? And what could you do to improve that? Sorry, I was just so excited about answering that question. My right finger just clicked a button, lost all the chat. Don't worry, I've got a backup. I always have a backup, so I'm just going to copy that. And you know what that was? That stray finger. That was the universe telling me, Lee, you've answered enough questions. Answer the rest in the forum later. So if you've just posted a question right now, I apologise. So stop posting questions, because in case I press another button and my secondary live chat also disappears. So I'll be recording this, putting this on YouTube as a recording, and then answering all the remaining questions that I couldn't get to. I apologise, but I have looked at the clock. And yes, you've probably budgeted to listen to only 30 minutes of me waffling on. 35 is pushing it. Go any further than that, I might start getting lynched. So I hope you enjoyed this final live broadcast. If you want to see more live broadcasts, great. If you don't, tough, because we're going to do them all in 2021. But you certainly can put in your suggestions as how you would like them presented. Do you want them longer? Do you want them shorter? Do you want more visuals? Do you want less visuals? Things like that. So as you can see, I've saved all your questions and I'm going to be able to answer them soon. Probably right after this broadcast. But until next year, thanks very much for all your attentions, especially my regulars who show up every Wednesday to listen to me waffle on. Thanks for watching. Happy Christmas, and I'll see you all next year. Goodbye and have a nice day.